This is Grace Notes. I'm Alan Button, and our guest singular but accompanied by her husband is Helen Harwood. Helen and Cliff Harwood have been a team for a lot of years now. In fact, have just celebrated their 58th wedding anniversary. Just this summer in July, Helen and Cliff were honored with the Order of the Longleaf Pine in recognition of their longtime work as patient advocates in the cancer arena, but specifically for their organization that they founded some years ago called Pennies from Angels. And we'll talk about that. In any event, let me get to it. Helen, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Good to have you here. Mm-hmm. Let me have you start, if you would, Helen, by giving us a little bit of a biography. You, as I understand it, were born in Tennessee but didn't stay there long, ended up in Littleton, North Carolina?
That's correct.
Tell us how long you were there and where you went from there.
Probably almost 18 years in Littleton. Then I was married, moved around a little bit, went to New York, came back, went to Roanoke Rapids, Winston-Salem, and then I think Wilson has been my home most of the time since we've been married. We'll
come back to the Wilson area here in just a minute. I'd like to hear a little bit about that marriage that you skirted over. You married a Navy man.
I did. Even though I didn't trust him, I did.
How did that happen?
Oh, I met him as a complete stranger on July the 5th at an Ocean View in Virginia. And another one of his friends bet him that he could get a date with anybody that Cliff picked out on the boardwalk. And Cliff, for some reason, picked me. And I never knew what happened to the other guy. But finally, I trusted Cliff enough to give him my phone number. And we started seeing each other every day until 16th of August when we got married.
A 6-week whirlwind romance.
Yep. It lasted 58 years.
I guess it worked out okay.
I guess so.
You got married in Elizabeth City, as I understand?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
I think Cliff said it basically amounted to an elopement.
It was. In fact, I told my mom 2 days before we got married that we were married just to see what her reaction would be. She was so happy with it that we went on and got married then.
You decided it was okay to go forward.
Better, yeah.
Tell us about your time after you moved back to North Carolina, leading up to 1980.
Well, we were kind of inactive at that point. We had a son that was real sick when we moved back down here. Didn't know if he would live or not. We have 2 children, Edith Ward and Cliff Harwood. And he was real sick, but after he got better, things were just non-eventful up until 1980.
What happened then?
And that's when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had to have surgery, then I had to have a year of treatment.
Tell us about your perspective. That for most people is a diagnosis that is really tough to handle.
It really is, but I cannot believe the reaction that I had because I'd been told the night before that it was not cancer. The nurse came in, woke me up, told me it was not cancer. I went back to sleep. They were going to do the biopsy the next morning. And they did the biopsy and they found it was cancer. So when the doctor came in, I said, well, what was the end result or what was the verdict? He said it was cancer. I said, well, can I play softball this summer? That was my first instinct. And that's a higher force, much higher than I am, that came into my life more then and took over the control of my life and led me through all the events that have happened. I went through the year treatment. It was not fun. I worked a full-time job, played softball, and we were in a square dance club. So a lot happened during that year, and they finally decided, okay, 8 months of treatment will be good enough. We won't have to do a year, and I was so glad of that.
Chemo treatment for about 8 months, you
mm-hmm.
said.
And it was twice a month that I actually got it, so you're talking about 16 treatment.
You were working and you were playing softball and
mm-hmm.
you were making a dress.
Yep.
As I
made a
understand
dress.
before we came into the studio. Well,
Yep.
let's come back to that in just a minute.
Okay.
But you were playing softball, and I understand the other girls didn't know about your circumstances.
Right, they didn't. I wasn't ashamed of it. It's just it wasn't necessary, and I didn't know a lot of them anyway. And the one time we were practicing the game, and I had a wig on, and the ground ball came to me, and I reached down to pick it up or to grab it, and as I did, my wig fell off. And
Your secret was out.
yeah, it was revealed that day. And I picked it up, put it back on my head, don't know if it was on straight or not, and continued playing. So.
What's this about the dress and the square
Oh,
dancing?
wow. In the Square Dance Club, we all wore the big, beautiful crinolines and the dresses and all of that. Well, there was a Valentine dance that I wanted to go to, but I needed a new dress. I needed something that was red and white. So on Friday afternoon, I got my treatments, came home. Saturday morning, I said, okay, I'm going to make this dress before tonight and wear it to the square dance. So I started on it early that morning, not too early, not like 5 o'clock or anything. But anyway, I started working on it. I'd get sick, have to go lay down a while. I'd get feeling better. I'd come back and work on the dress some more. I did that all day that day. And at the end of the day, as it was time for us to leave, I had finished that dress and I was able to wear it that night. There was a determination that comes from somewhere beyond me.
You know, speaking of somewhere beyond you, that reminds me of this first song that you've identified. Tell us about it, Because He Lives.
Well, during that year, when you've been diagnosed with cancer, you can't help but question your life. What is it going to be like? Am I going to live? There are many, many questions that go through your mind. But there was one song I had heard, and I learned to play it on the piano, Because He Lives. And the first verse in one of the verses is, I can face tomorrow. I know who holds tomorrow. I can face tomorrow. And I played it every single day that whole year when I was on treatment because it was a reinforcement to me that I could make it through.
Let's hear the song, Because He Lives, by Bill and Gloria Gaither, featuring the Booth Brothers. That was Because He Lives by Bill and Gloria Gaither, featuring the Booth Brothers. If you're just joining us, this is Grace Notes, and our guest today is Helen Harwood. Helen, I'd like to pick up on how it is that Pennies from Angels got started. But before we go there, tell us about your experience, your background, and how you got involved as a patient advocate in the cancer realm to begin with. I understand that you worked with the American Cancer Society for a good number of years.
Probably 30, maybe a little bit longer. I volunteered with them throughout the state, trying to make a resource manual for each county. I helped patients to get back and forth to treatments or get the gas money or whatever they needed during that time. And then I got a job as a patient advocate.
And this volunteer work grew out of not only your own personal experience, but also the work that you were doing,
yes,
as I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually was doing the volunteer work and then got the job later, so the experience in that case actually helped me.
I see. But you have been working as a patient advocate for many years at this point.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It's about 24, 25 years.
Tell us something about your educational background, because I know that relates to what you're
Yeah,
doing.
it does, quite a bit. I graduated from high school, had no ambitions to go to college at all. After I turned, late 30s or early 40s, I had a gentleman that convinced me I was smart enough to go back to school. I said, okay, I'm going to take one course, and that's going to be the end of it. I don't want to hear any more. Well, I took that course, and I made an A, so that built my confidence a little bit.
Sounds like that gentleman knew what he was talking about.
I don't know. I still don't have the confidence in myself. But I went on and I took human services at Wayne Community College, 2-year degree in human services, which meant I had to take psychology. And I thought, oh no, I hate psychology. But I took it anyway, and I took every course they had. I was still working. I stayed out a couple of years and decided I want more than that. So I went to Mount Olive part-time as I was working and got a 4-year degree in psychology.
Graduated at the age of?
57.
Wow, that's terrific.
It was hard.
Tell us about the pennies. Where do they come in?
Oh, wow. I had a patient sitting in front of me one day that had to choose between her medicine and her food. Which was she going to buy that day? And I thought, this shouldn't be. So I started putting a percentage of what I made into a separate account and used that to help patients, not telling anybody about it because that was just something I wanted to do. And for 8 years, I did that. And then I had people, they were hearing about it in the community, so they convinced me to make it nonprofit. I have made it nonprofit in 2001. But how did that get started? It started in another tragedy. The breast cancer was one that I made something good out of something so negative. Again, my sister that was 28 and my brother-in-law was about 27. They were hit head-on in Gaston, North Carolina, and they were killed instantly. That truck caught fire, so we couldn't even have a open casket for them.
Your sister was much younger than you.
Oh, yeah. It's 15, 20 years difference in our ages.
Uh-huh.
And when they were killed, I had to handle her estate, and my brother-in-law's mother handled his estate. When we cleaned out the home, we found a jug of pennies. His mother took them home and kept them for a couple of years, and then she brought them to me. And she said, Helen, I want to give you these. I didn't know what it was because it was wrapped up. I opened it up, and there was all the pennies they had collected over the years where they found them on the ground and all that in this great big old jar. Well, as a volunteer, I'd been working with a little boy that was 5 years old, that his mother needed transportation to do. She needed food at home. She needed food when they were away, and I was working to help them get all of that. And I never paid any attention to the little boy's name because I always talked to her because he was too young to even talk to. So she called me and she said, Miss Helen, we got a trip to Disney World. We're going to Disney World. Everything's paid for. I said, but I've worked with him so long, I'd like to do something for you to make that trip more pleasurable. She said, well, they've got it all covered. I said, are you sure? She said, well, Chris could use a pair of tennis shoes. I said, what did you say his name was? She said, Chris. My brother-in-law's name was Chris. And Cliff had already told me that the time would come when I'd know where to use those pennies. Well, what little boy named Chris and my brother-in-law that have never met, I ended up knowing both. And it told me right then those pennies needed to go to that little boy. That little boy's mother bought him tennis shoes to walk in when he went to Disney World. That was the beginning of Pennies from Angels.
Well, that, of course, ties very neatly into the song that you've selected, Angels Among Us.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about that.
I just love this song. There's a part in it where a man is talking about he was walking down the path and he got lost and a stranger came along and held his hand. And the stranger, in my view, is God leading me to do the things that I do with Pennies from Angels and the cancer patients.
And the funds that Pennies from Angels receives come largely unsolicited, as I understand it.
Yes. They are donations from people that know about it, that have heard about it. They trust us, that they know that when we say that all the money goes to help patients, that that's where it's going. And I think we have built the trust in our local communities.
And I gather the name comes from your view that these pennies are coming from angels.
And those two angels is Chris and Lisa. And when we are in doubt about something, that's when we find a penny. The day that we settled their estate, we found a penny on a desk that wasn't even used. And that told us that it's okay to accept whatever they offered on the insurance. And they offered the max, and we were not going to fight anybody over money. And my mother and father were too feeble to even go to court and all that anyway, but we were not the type of people. And when I went back and told my daddy, he agreed with me.
Let's hear the song, Angels Among Us by Alabama.
I was walking home from school.
What a great song. That was Angels Among Us by Alabama. Our guest today is Helen Harwood. Helen is a longtime patient advocate with her husband, winners of the Order of the Longleaf Pine just recently. And I guess, Helen, I'd like to pick up on what occurred to me as we were listening to the song, and that is that so much of what you do and what you say, your perspective on life, seems to rise to the spiritual. And I'm reminded of something that somebody said to me and my wife a long time ago about somebody else, somewhat derogatorily, that they are so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. It strikes me that you've got the balance pretty well figured out. Heavenly minded, but a whole lot of earthly good. And that, of course, is what this song is about, too.
Thank you.
Angels Among Us. Tell us more about what Pennies from Angels does and how you operate it.
Okay, all expenses are paid by my husband and I. The brochures, the stamps, the envelopes, everything we take out of pocket, not out of Pennies from Angels. So many organizations are paying all these big salaries. We wanted something that people could go to and actually get help. We pay on utility bills, rent, medications, food. And I'll give you an example of one because you really need to see the personal side of it as well. We had a young man that was in his 40s. When I met him, he had throat cancer. He could not eat. He could not talk. They were getting ready to put a tube feeding in him because he could not eat. And he was losing so much weight, they had to put it in. They called me from the hospital and they said, Miss Helen, can you help with the blender? I said, let me talk to the patient. I talked with him and his friend to see what we could do. We went out on a Tuesday, Cliff and I bought the blender, delivered it to his house, and this was on a Tuesday. By the next Tuesday now, he called me. He said, Miss Helen, I have gained 4 pounds this week. I don't have to have the feeding tube. A $40 item. In 2 weeks, he called me. He had gained 14 pounds because he had a $40 blender. I can't buy a blender for everybody in the city, but, you know, when it comes to a case like that, and he didn't have to ever get feeding tube because of a $40 item.
What a great example of the difference that Pennies from Angels has made and can make.
Oh, I hope it does make a difference.
How does Pennies from Angels get its funds?
Well, we don't advertise at all because it's taking money away from people that need it. But we have a benefit dinner. We have a company that caters it. My husband and I pay for it. We save our money throughout the year. We have it at a church that has been very generous to allow us to use a fellowship hall. This year we had 235 people. We don't charge for the dinner. We have door prizes, we have entertainment, and a good meal. And we started because it was my birthday one year. I said, Cliff, people bring gifts and I don't want gifts. So we put on the invitation, in lieu of a gift, a donation can be made to Pennies from Angels. The first year we got $3,000. And we've had that dinner every year since then. And this past year, we had 235 people. We raised $6,700 and some odd dollars, almost $6,700, the most we've ever done.
So outside of the annual dinner, the funds that come to Pennies from Angels come
just keep
unsolicited.
coming in.
What a great thing. Tell us where people can get more information if they're interested, Helen.
If you're wanting the phone number, just to Cliff or Helen Harwood, 252-246-0620.
Do you have an email address that
yes,
people can reach you?
I forgot about that.
Through? Go ahead.
Pennies, Pennies, from Angels at yahoo.com.
Pennies from Angels at yahoo.com.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Helen, if you don't mind my asking, how old are you?
I'm 76 and proud of every day of it.
And still working.
Yeah.
And still
I work about 30 hours a week now.
Still advocating.
Mm-hmm.
Any intentions to retire at any time in the next this century?
I don't know. I don't know. I think about it, and then I think about, no, I'm too healthy not to keep going. I don't know. That's still up in the air.
Helen, it's been a great treat to have you here, and I know you with your husband are a team, and Cliff has been sitting quietly in the corner listening, but let me thank Cliff, too, for being here. The two of you, you're a great inspiration.
I couldn't do it without him.
You've identified another song, The Impossible Dream. Tell us about it.
Well, if somebody had told me to start this organization, I wouldn't have done it. I would have said that's impossible. But it's not impossible. But if you do what you're supposed to do, it'll work out. And it has. I can't remember all the words in it, but Impossible Dream is what Pennies from Angels is.
Well, let's hear it. And we'll hear the version by Elvis Presley.
Oh, I love him.
What did you say about that?
I love him.
Elvis is all right. Huh? Let's hear it. The Impossible Dream by Elvis Presley.
To dream the impossible dream. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Grace Notes, a special program here on Life 103.1 featuring people who may be relatively unknown, but who meet life's challenges in ways that brighten the lives of those around them. Our producer is Christina Dolan. I'm Alan Button, and we invite you to join all of us here at the station again next Friday at 5:30 for Grace Notes on Life 103.1.